I'll be the button person.
Well, good evening. Thanks for being here. Want to make this a great class as it's our last class of the semester, and so we have a project to present. I want to welcome our special guest here. South Carolina Restaurant Lodging Association is a report that was prepared by the students and in the revenue management class, and they have put a lot of work into this, and they've got some really interesting observations and some recommendations. So I'm going to sit down because they are the star of the show, and so take it away, folks.
Alrighty, so yeah, pretty much what Dr. Smith just said. We just did our report on the southeastern states, and we analyzed the dues and percentage of members of each association. So we're going to kick off with North Carolina. I did North Carolina. It was established in 1947. It's the NCRLA, the North Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association. So yeah, it works to advance, protect North Carolina. They have a 22 billion restaurant, food service, and lodging industry. It's pretty big. North Carolina is pretty populated. The dues are calculated per rooms, and they do not have a sales team. Found that pretty funny with how big North Carolina is with not having a sales team. I think that is, later on in the slide, I think that's the recommendation that they need. The vision. So the association is to lead the hospitality industry by elevating its prosperity, prominence, and the vision, prominence and participation, enhancing the quality of life to service. And the mission is to serve members by advancing and protecting North Carolina's hospitality industry. And they do that in 3 ways. They build the image, build industry influence, and build industry engagement. And some fun fact, which I found pretty cool, was they hold an annual North Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Expo. That's pretty much where they get everyone from the restaurant and lodging industry, and they come together. It's going to be on August 29th through 30th. And it's to showcase like the latest products, services, and technologies, keep up with the trends. Everything's changing now. And they also have a pretty awesome foundation as well, to where it's called the NCRLA Hospitality Education Foundation. And it's like, it exists to enhance the hospitality's industry service to the public through education and community engagement and promotion of career opportunities. It offers students just some benefits and just a chance to get a scholarship for those who need. And then we threw in a chart. There'll be a chart for every state. So something that sticks out to me is the percentage of members. Only 15% for having 250 properties. That is kind of low. 250 properties for the total of 13,000 rooms. So that's telling me that a lot of the hotels, they may be smaller inns, maybe limited service hotels where they don't really have the members. And the lodging dues, $575, that's pretty good. That's average compared to the 6 states. And but yeah, the big thing that stood out to me was the sales department. They don't have a sales team for how big North Carolina really is. And we'll go into more detail about that when we get all the stats up here. Just some quick stuff about North Carolina. Alabama. So yeah, this is a big switch from North Carolina. I did Alabama next. So kind of different ballpark on this one, but they're, let's see, the history has been over 65 years, and they're located in the capital city of Montgomery. Pretty much the same vision. It's just to strengthen their restaurant and hospitality industry, and they have only over 1,200 members, which is not, that's still pretty good, but still lower compared to North Carolina. North Carolina, they employ over 13% of their population as a whole. So that is the biggest industry that they have in North Carolina. That's what most employment comes from, 13%, a lot. And but Alabama, though, they are the second largest employer with the 1,200 members. So not too bad for Alabama. They employ a lot of people in the restaurant and lodging industry side. And a fun fact, pretty cool, in 2012, the Alabama Hospitality Association and the Restaurant Association completed their merger, and they started the Alabama Restaurant Hospitality Alliance. And then another thing, they partnered with the Department of Economic and Community Affairs which is grants them like efficient equipment, and it's at no cost to the hotel, so everything's gonna be energy efficient. Pretty nice partner to have for Alabama. I think that sticks out to me in the stats. 10% of their members, so only 5% lower than North Carolina, with a total of 55 hotel properties. That's a lot lower than North Carolina. They have a pretty high, not that bad a percentage, but could be better. 7,600 rooms, still no sales team. Both of them offer 6 benefits, so they get pretty much the same benefits being members. But their lodging dues is what gets it. It's $4 per room, so that is huge. Just $1.75 less than North Carolina, even though that is a way lower population, so you would expect less. But not bad for Alabama. Still, I don't think they need a sales department considering how low everything is, but we'll go deeper into that as well.
Okay, the next state that we took a look at was Georgia, which is, and for this association, it's the Georgia Hotel and Lodging Association. It was originally founded in 1907. Its mission is to promote, protect, educate the lodging industry around the state and to ensure positivity business growth for its members. For Georgia, their dues are a little bit different. I feel like personally it's different because the way they have it set up is where dues are separated by hotels, lodging facilities, and that includes food and beverages, and the ones without it. So it's like hotels that have like maybe a restaurant and the versus hotels that do not have restaurants. And it also has separated itself from Metro Atlanta. So instead of just being Georgia as a whole, it has Georgia and Metro Atlanta. It's 2 different pricing structures for its dues. The dues are calculated per room, location, and hotel council. The association also allows members to have the option of how often dues are paid. I also could put that under the fun fact as well, because I think that's it's pretty cool that they have that. And then also going back to how the dues are separated with the Metro Atlanta. For Georgia, lodging without like food and beverage, the 50 rooms or less for annual investment would be $227.25. And then with the food and beverage, it would be $263.50 for annual investment. And then for Metro Atlanta, there are counties that they include for that is Fulton, Cobb, DeKalb, Clayton, Gwinnett, Douglas, Fayette, and Henry. And theirs is actually their annual investment for food and hotels with food and beverages, and even without food and beverages. Theirs are higher. I think it's because it's such a popular area, the Metro Atlanta. So theirs is about $100 more for the annual investment, which is $308 without food and beverage, and then $363 for hotels with food and beverage. Some of the back to what I was saying about the hotel councils, how the dues are calculated per location hotel council. They're split up into four hotel councils. Sorry, it's the Atlanta Hotel Council, the Atlanta Airport Hotel Council, Buckhead Hotel Council, and the Cobb Hotel Council. And going down here into the chart, we see that it has a lodging members at 80%. Which you'll see later that it's actually the second highest in its percentage of members, and also that they are like right at, oops, slide for this. Who did you just have?
Alabama.
Alabama, yes. Okay, so Alabama, you'll see that it's just $1 above what they had for their lodging dues per room, so that's pretty good. It's also probably why they have so many members. And then just some fun facts was that they are actually vital to the state's economy, which is providing 9.7% of all jobs in states are related to the lodging industry, so directly or indirectly. This includes hotels, resorts, motels, etc., things like that. And then it comes in at $3.7 billion in direct sales. And ironically, Georgia is actually currently restructuring these lodging dues. So when we asked the member over the association, the chair member over the association, he was telling us that they're actually in the middle of restructuring their dues, which is probably why we don't really for this. I think this is actually going to be updated because And it might actually be higher, the percentage of members because of that. So, yeah. And next we have Virginia, and Virginia association is Virginia Restaurant Lodging and Travel Association. It was founded in 1993. And just jumping down to the fun fact, it was actually originally began as three separate associations, which was the Virginia Hotel and Motel Association, Virginia Restaurant Association, and the Virginia Travel Council. And then in 1993, it came under the umbrella of Virginia Restaurant Lodging and Travel Association. Its mission is to create value for members, promoting the legislative interests of the industry, networking, educational opportunities, and protecting free enterprise. The due structure for Virginia are divided into 7 sections. It has its branded hotels, and for these dues, they're calculated based on the number of locations, rooms, and per room fee. And it's also eligible for the 50% discount they have for the first year for members with branded hotels, and the same goes for the 50% discount for members for the first year in independent hotels. And for the independent hotels, those dues are calculated on the number of rooms, and it also may include a per room fee structure. The DMOs, for the DMOs and chambers, their dues are calculated based on annual tourism and budget. Travel attractions, theirs are based on the number of visitors annually. Wineries, the number of cases produced. Breweries and distilleries are calculated based on the number of barrels produced. And then the restaurants dues are calculated based on the number of the restaurants owned in the area, as well as includes a membership for the National Restaurant Association. And down here, as you can see, Virginia, later on you'll see also in the next 2 slides when we actually compare all of the charts that the percentage of members are at 5%. So that means they actually have a lot more, most likely a lot more restaurants for their memberships rather than lodging. And so that could also be why they have such a low membership. Also, there is only one outside revenue source. And I think with that, maybe if they had a little bit more, they could probably, expand their revenue. But and also they only have 300 properties. I feel like maybe if they were to increase the number of properties and talk to the team members in the sales department, that could also increase their percentage of members. So, and with that also, their lodging dues are $6.45, which is higher than the other states. And their lodging dues were actually lower, and they had a better percentage of members. So maybe if they lowered their lodging dues, that would increase the number of properties they could get as well as the percent of members.
So I'm talking from Louisiana Hotel and Lodging Association. It was established in the mid-1920s, and it is a recognized ambassador of the hotel industry of Louisiana. Initially, they were offering the benefits to its members, but now they serve all the government agencies and Louisiana legislature, other industry components, many local area, and the state and the public in general. So some of the findings that when we compared with other 6 states, we found that they have fewer properties. They only have 250 properties, so which is compared to others, which is a very low number, but it is surprisingly they have 95% of membership. So that was one of the surprising things for us. But the lodging dues are 5.25, which is not so high, not so low, which 6 states we compared. So it's a moderate rate of membership dues, and they charge for per year per room per year. And they don't have any other options for that, other than that, but still it's a really great percentage of memberships. The Tennessee Hospitality and Tourism Association, currently they are in their 88th year of operation, and their vision is the driving force and respected voice of Tennessee's hospitality and tourism industry. Their priority areas are industry advocacy, education and communication, association membership and growth, association governance and organizational development. They code funding for tourism activities in Tennessee. Some of the findings of our research were that they have the most amount of properties, and but they still have a higher rate for dues. That is $6.99 per room per year. They also have option of for their members to pay quarterly, not yearly, but still. We found it very surprising that they're the third best in purchase percentage of the membership. They have 40% of memberships, and they didn't change their dues up to 5 years. So 5 years it was constantly the same. They didn't change up or lower or higher the prices, but for the restaurants they increased their prices up to $20 this year.
Alright, so let's go into the bulk of everything. So when you see right here, Louisiana killed everyone when it came to percentage of members. And I found that to be pretty cool because they do have a lot of rooms with a good amount of properties, 215. The funny thing is they have no one in their sales department. So if they want to add maybe more percentage of members, they can add a sales department and figure out what they can do with their dues. It's at $525, which is, that's like third highest? Fourth highest, okay. So $525, that's still good dues. A lot of members. I'm really surprised about Louisiana because they offer the least amount of benefits, but they have a lot of rooms with less property. So that means, I'm assuming that like, they just have really nice hotels in Louisiana, probably some luxury hotels, some full service ones. People want to become members because they have no outside source of revenue, no sales team. And so that's where Louisiana sticks out to me, while North Carolina is also one that sticks out because I think North Carolina is going to be very popular in the next few years. It's only going to grow. I believe that probably most of its restaurants right now in the downtown area, that's why it's only 50% of members. But I think if they added a sales team and kind of checked with their dues and just get more total rooms, I would expect North Carolina to have more rooms than like Louisiana and maybe not Tennessee, but I would expect them to have more rooms than that. So yeah, they need to up their game when it comes to rooms, maybe get some more properties, get a sales team in there, and it'll help out with their percentage of members. Alabama is not really a surprising stat to me considering how many properties they have total. Only 55 total properties with 7,600 rooms. They don't really need a sales team right now, I would say. Even though they're at 10%, they have the lowest lodging dues as well.
And also just to add on to that, with going back to Louisiana, I just wanted to point out that they have no sales department, and they're their highest in percentage of members. But Virginia is the lowest, and they have 2 people in their sales department. So we're looking at maybe downsizing the department, or at least maybe rehiring. So we don't want to say that they're doing bad, but they're not doing something right either. So
they have a lot of properties, and I would assume a lot of rooms. We didn't get that, but their lodging dues are very high for that sales department, and only 5% of members is very weak. And they don't offer many benefits as well, so that could be another factor that why people don't really join them, because most of them have the same benefits, same number of benefits. Louisiana is the least, but they're the highest on percentage members, so it's pretty cool. Georgia is one as well for having so many total rooms. They have a high percentage of members.
also, that I was going to add on to, just to point out, when we say not applicable, is we're putting that there because we weren't able to get the exact amount. Not saying that they don't have it at all, but we weren't able to get the exact amount. So we, instead of putting 0 and having it be inaccurate and it being valid, we just rather have put not applicable. And also for Tennessee, they are the 3rd highest for the memberships. So we were also thinking maybe they could add a restaurant to maybe boost them to second place, so, yeah.
And if you note that the two highest ones actually do not offer multi-property discounts. Kind of funny as well, most of them do restaurant dues annually besides Tennessee, but the two highest, yeah, do not offer any multi-property discounts, so it's all just great properties, people becoming members. Let's see. There's not many people with a sales team. Georgia has one and Tennessee has one, and you can see why they're one of the higher ones on this chart. But the two sales teams in Virginia need to either step up the games, do something with the lodging dues, lower it to like 4 or something, or exactly 5 if they want to get any members involved. And let's see, another stat would be, I wish I knew 23% total lives in Tennessee. Let's see. Well, in North Carolina, the good thing is they do have the most outside revenue sources. So, I mean, that could bring in profit as well for having such a low percentage of members. But I would expect their numbers to grow since North Carolina seems to be booming in the past couple of years. Okay, so here's the chart of everything. You'll see that Louisiana is just higher, way higher than everyone else is. Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina, Alabama, Virginia. Something we kind of really expected. I still expect North Carolina to be higher than Tennessee, but time will only tell.
Alright, so some of our recommendations and remarks that we had, just to excel in the future for all the state's hotel lodging associations, we recommend that having a low rate as possible, or at least starting out at a low rate as low as you can go for membership dues would probably be really beneficial to see how members react and how well they keep up with dues and things like that. And also, if the low rate works, or if you decide to increase it and it's working for however long you set a time, maybe we're thinking about maybe setting a time like for 2 years we'll keep it at this rate. Keeping the dues constant. If it is working for you and you see that your numbers are growing, it would be best to keep it that way. And then also to have a sales department to focus on increasing, attracting members, being innovative, seeing how you can pull in and recruit new members. Also to have a good percentage of properties, and also to have a good percentage of members. So we're basically saying that to always keep that in mind and to always keep that as the association's top priority and top goal. So.
And then, y'all have any questions?
So let me ask you this. So Louisiana with 95% penetration rate in your membership. Can you go back to that slide?
Yes.
Yeah, right there. There's only 29,000 rooms in Louisiana. That's the total number of rooms that they have in membership, but they have 95% penetration rate. I think that number's reversed. Because if there's 168,000 rooms in Georgia, and Georgia and Louisiana, with New Orleans being an anchor city and Atlanta, Georgia being an anchor city, I have to guess that their populations or their room populations are probably pretty similar. So I think maybe that 95 is really 5%. I think it's reversed.
Really?
Yeah, I think they probably have 5%.
Oh.
Because South Carolina has 3,300 rooms, or excuse me, 3,300 properties.
Okay.
And so, since they're saying they have 215 properties in membership, and that's 95%, that means they only have, 235 total hotels in the entire state. There's probably 235 hotels in downtown New Orleans, I'm guessing. So I think that number's reversed. I think they misunderstood your question.
Okay.
And that's possible, because I know.
I contacted the
Yeah.
person in Louisiana, but he didn't respond earlier, and he didn't even, I didn't get to call him and
Okay.
talked to him in person, he just gave me the answers in the email, so.
Okay, so I think that's probably the case there, on that side. But, I mean, all your findings, everything else, that's the only thing that kind of jumps out at me there is that, to have 95% penetration rate for a trade association is like super huge.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
seems
that's
kind
what
of
we were
strange.
also concerned about, that how come?
I'd probably venture a guess that the state of South Carolina doesn't collect 95% of the sales taxes that are charged by the businesses. And they're a government agency with a lot of authority versus a trade association which is volunteer. So that's one thing that does stick out to me, that I find that the numbers to be different, but, you know, just looking at the total dues, the sales department, the outside revenue sources, and those kinds of things, and when comparing those to, you know, where South Carolina falls, our percentage of membership is right around 10%, give or take a couple percentages. You know, we have around 300 to 310 hotel members, there's 3,300 properties, you know, in the state. Our dues are the highest on the list at $7.20 per room. So I find those numbers to be interesting, that we have a 10% penetration rate on the hotels, similar to Alabama, or even North Carolina, and our dues are substantially higher than both of them. And so it represents a good number of properties. So North Carolina's got 250 properties, we've got 300 properties, and our dues are even more expensive.
It's amazing, 10% with $7 over on the dues. Do y'all ever consider lowering to get more members, or everything's going?
This report will determine that, and they've been wanting to lower the dues to help, you know, strengthen the association with more members, so it becomes more available to that. We do have multi-property discounts, so the discount does drop to $4.50. Most hotels are part of the multi-property discount because most of them are managed by management companies with, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hotels. And so most of them aren't paying the $7.20, but that's the retail rack rate. Most of them are paying $4.50, which puts us more into, you know, I wouldn't put it at the median price if I averaged all those, but pretty close, closer than $7.20.
Have y'all been looking at Georgia's stats and saying like, wow, what are they doing?
Yeah, well, and, you know, Chris and I do talk, and it is interesting. Their structure, and as y'all learn when you talk to them, that they have councils. And so in order to get anything out of that council, that council governs the marketing of those regions. And so you're almost beholden to the association to join in order to get those benefits. And so the only thing that you know, you kind of look there at number of benefits 6, you know, but if one of them is like golden handcuffs, you know, then it doesn't matter how many you have. I mean, all you really need is one, and so they have that one. So I'm not surprised by their numbers at all.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. And because, you know, you don't have to have a lot of properties if you've got properties that are, you know, 400, 600, 800 rooms each.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have a lot of properties, you know, it's the total rooms impact itself.
Yeah, because they have less properties, but way total rooms. So I'm
Right.
assuming I'm assuming they just have bigger, more probably full service
Yeah.
luxury hotels that offer maybe better benefits, better service.
And just a question for you, for Georgia, how I told you that they have a split for dues for the Metro Atlanta and then Georgia just as a state as a whole. Do you think it's because those are probably areas for that they have it higher that like that?
Yeah, so Georgia is Atlanta runs the state. And so if you look at it that way, you ever heard the phrase, the tail wagging the dog, instead of the dog wagging the tail? That's what's happening, it's the tail's wagging the dog. So Atlanta dictates what happens across the state, everyone else just gets to deal with it. So much of what they do is done on a local government, and that's where those councils come in. So you have Buckhead, and you have Atlanta, and you have Cobb County, and you've got Decatur County, and Fulton County. You have to manage those relationships with their city councils and county councils in there, because that's what's wagging the dog, is all of these councils joined together where you have, you know, 6, 8, 10, 12, you know, councils made up of, you know, 6, 8, 10, 12 people. That outweighs the entire legislature, the Georgia legislature. And so they can kind of, at that point, put the pressure on the Georgia legislature to do what they need to do, because Atlanta kind of runs that state. I don't think they have full reign of the state, but they do dictate a lot of it. And so I'm not surprised by seeing those numbers there because they're very actively involved. You know, Chris was telling me that he has people, they're not sales people, but they have staffers that actually go to every council meeting to be able to document and record what's being said. So they know where they need to be with their influence.
You're on the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. Well, their numbers show pretty well, so.
They do.
They're doing a good job on what
And-
they're doing.
Did you find out what like the total, what the average room is, like for someone that joins the council and the state?
I did find out for the council, I did find out if it's for for the Atlanta Hotel Council, it's $6 per room plus the membership with the GHLA, and then for Atlanta Airport, it's $4.50 per room. Buckhead is $10 per room, and then Cobb Hotel Council is under 200 rooms is $3, and then over 200 rooms is $5.
So you're upwards to 15, so $8 to $15 per room.
Right.
Net when you're all in.
Right.
Okay. Which makes them more expensive
Yeah.
Yeah.
with more people.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions?
I mean, you know, Virginia does stand out, and you're very polite to say what's going on here. You've got 2 salespeople, and yet you've only got 5% of the market there. Do you have any other further insight into that?
I was gonna say, I think also it's because they're in the middle of restructuring their dues to, where was that, Georgia? I think it was Virginia. I think it was Virginia. I wanna make sure, I don't wanna call them out, and it's not them. No, their dues are actually where they're supposed to be. So, but they don't know how many sort of rooms they have. I don't know if that has an effect possibly on the membership percentage, but they don't know how many rooms they have at all. Because I asked twice, I believe, and they sent back both emails that they weren't sure. So, I don't know, I think maybe if they found something, I think they could figure something out if they found it out.
2 salespeople, they don't know the rooms, so that's rough. And they have really high dues as well for, they have a lot of properties, it shows, but maybe in bad areas, Virginia. I'm not
Well,
too
it's
sure.
interesting, and, you know, Georgia looks like they obviously have a very successful plan with the councils. And I'm sure that the small hotels, because I can remember going to Georgia and staying in a small town, and it's just a little small motel. And, you know, how do you equitably charge them the proper dues versus, you know, the Marriott Marquis, which is thousands of rooms? And so it's an interesting observation that Georgia seems to almost have a 2-tier system. You know, the developed downtown versus maybe the mom and pop hotel out in the middle of, I don't know, Macon, Georgia or whatever. It seems to work really well for them in that they have a high percentage of members. I like the little tidbits, but can you tell me, each of you pick a state, tell me something that they do that maybe gives that association greater value. You mentioned, I'll give you North Carolina, their conference every year.
Mhm.
It seems like they really push that as a member benefit. Is that?
Yeah, they get together, they try to come up with like the current trends. I think another good thing is the North Carolina Restaurant Association is huge. They won a couple awards already, so I think their main focus is mainly on like the restaurant side of North Carolina,
Okay.
maybe like just the downtown area in general. But I know they're going to an award dinner for the restaurant, I believe, sometime later this month. So they get notification for the restaurant side of it, but I didn't really see much news on the lodging side of it.
So the opportunity for North Carolina would be to develop a better relationship with
The lodging side. The restaurant's already booming, but they just gotta get the lodging industry up there as well with them. get more members.
Tunisia, what about your two states? What?
Well, I didn't get to speak with the person signed in Louisiana, but in Tennessee, I talked to Miss Lisa, and she said like, the members are, the word of mouth for recommendation for the members, that works really well with them, because they recommend them to say, to talk to others who they meet or who they really like to socialize with, to talk about being a member. And they can also like bring guests to their conferences and meetings for first time. So if they like, they can join the membership. That's also really helping them for getting new members.
Sarah, what about you? The state, what's?
For Georgia, I was gonna say that, they have monthly hotel council meetings, and, with that, they go into local and state issues and, managers, owners, franchises of the each respective area, like they come together and they discuss like what's going on and what can be improved. I believe that probably could help a lot of the hotelers within the business. That's probably what's helping keep their percentage of the memberships high. For Virginia, I don't really find a lot, but I don't know if this relates to it or may, put some insight into it. They have one of their sources, their outside sources, well, their only outside source, is the ServSafe food and safety program. And with that, it's a food and safety education and training for restaurants and the food service industry. So we partner with them to help provide courses and certification exams for the NRA.
I mean, that's a very interesting point, is the educational aspect of it. And ServSafe is the perfect example where you have to have, managers that are, and that's why we make you all take ServSafe as undergrads.
Right.
And so I'm just wondering if, the educational aspect, can any of you speak to your states as to, I mean, you just obviously talked about that, but any other states that really emphasize the educational aspect of it that stood out to you?
The North Carolina Education Foundation, I thought,
Okay.
was pretty neat, just offering scholarships to those members, and they do also do like the ServSafe as well, and plenty of the same benefits we saw for most of them.
Yeah, for Georgia, they have Star Wars and they recognize employees for that. They also provide network opportunities for hotelers, and they do industry briefings. Yeah.
I actually think most of them offer like a scholarship foundation, because I saw that Alabama, even for how low properties they have, they
Right.
also offer a foundation for scholarships as well.
Did any of the websites jump out at you as either user-friendly or could stand to use some updating?
I thought North Carolina's was very organized.
Very
I liked-
organized.
Yeah, I liked that one. Alabama, they just did a new website, so like when you go to it, it's like, new website, go to this link. So it's brand new, it's very nice. I like it as well. It was pretty easy to navigate through most of it, to find the structures and the dues and benefits, all that.
Yeah, I'd say for mine, for the most part, they were user friendly. I think for Virginia, I think they could update it a little bit, because it's kind of just like, you know how sometimes if you click on one link, it'll go to the same link, and then the next tab will go to the same page. Like, it kind of directs you to the same thing, and it's not really what I was looking for. Like, for Georgia, they were able to show like how many lodging properties, how many employees are here and stuff like that. I think that kind of just gives just a better insight for people who are thinking about joining, or or other hotels or that want to become memberships or anything like that. But Virginia, they didn't have that. They just had kind of their background, and then they did have a full separate tab for ServSafe. I think that's how you say it, yeah, ServSafe. So, but yeah, I think they could include just a little bit more, like as far as numbers for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I found out Louisiana had a better website than Tennessee, because it was more friendly, I felt like that. They had the membership application applications, and everything was directed very nicely, it was smooth and it's very user-friendly, but for the Tennessee, I felt like it's not that much user-friendly, it's a bit backdated, it has not been updated recently or something like that.
Okay.
So, that needs to be a consideration for them too.
So, and I assume that you came to the South Carolina website and looked there as well, all of you?
I got some.
I like
really
more
look much on
so,
it.
more so toward the beginning of the project.
Mhm.
Checking things out?
Yeah, getting a benchmark, but I don't really remember much of the numbers. Mhm.
Keith or Jeff?